The Drekari had eaten their way across 400 star systems. Nobody in the Meridian Coalition used that word. They said conquered or invaded because those words felt safer. But Ambassador Sorrel had seen the footage from the Fallen Worlds. The Drekari did not conquer. They fed. They hunted. They played with their food the way a child might play with insects before crushing them. Sorrel's forearms trembled as he watched the latest transmission from Viridian Prime. The planet had been home to 60 million souls. Peaceful farmers, artists, teachers. Now it was a hunting ground where Drekari packs chased screaming civilians through burning cities for sport. The Drekari were nightmares given flesh. 8 limbs, armored bodies that could shrug off plasma fire, jaws that could bite through starship hull plating. They had evolved on a world so violent that everything was either predator or prey. The Drekari had become the ultimate predators, and when they ran out of prey on their home world, they looked to the stars. For 300 years, they had hunted their way across the galaxy. No species had ever stopped them. No species had ever slowed them down. And now they were coming for the Coalition. Sorrel stood before the Emergency Council in the Great Chamber of Brenner Station. 12 species. 12 terrified faces. The Venery like himself, insectoid diplomats who had never known war. The Pelori, gentle giants who communicated through song. The Kesith, brilliant engineers whose largest weapons were mining lasers. None of them were fighters. None of them had ever needed to be. "We must send a distress signal," Sorrel said. His voice was calm, even though his hearts were racing. "To every corner of the galaxy, every species, every world, someone must help us." "Who would answer?" asked Council Leader Maven, her Pelori voice like a mournful bell. "The Drekari have hunted for 3 centuries. No one has challenged them. No one has dared." "Then we are already dead," Sorrel replied. "But I would rather die asking for help than die in silence." The council agreed. They had no other choice. The signal went out across every frequency, every channel, every band of communication known to galactic civilization. A plea, a prayer, a scream into the void point. 3 days passed. 4, 5. Responses came from distant empires expressing sympathy, but offering no aid. The Drekari were too dangerous. The Coalition was too far away. Everyone had excuses. Everyone was afraid. On the 6th day, a response arrived from a planet the Coalition had deliberately avoided for 2 centuries. Earth. The long-range surveys had marked it clearly. Class 7 Deathworld. A planet of extremes. Massive predators. Toxic atmospheres in some regions. Radiation storms. Earthquakes. Volcanic eruptions. Floods that swallowed entire continents. And at the top of the food chain, a species of persistence hunters who had somehow survived everything their world threw at them. Humans. The Coalition had watched them from afar with horrified fascination. They watched humans hunt creatures 10 times their size by simply following them until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They watched humans drink plant extracts that would poison any other species. They watched humans fight each other with weapons that cracked atoms and burned cities to ash. The Coalition had decided, unanimously, that humanity was best left alone. But humanity had received the signal. The response was short. "This is the United Earth Defense Corps. Transmit coordinates for your refugee stations. We are mobilizing a relief force. Estimated arrival, 18 standard days." Sorrel read the message 5 times. Then he read it to the council. "Relief force." Maven whispered, "They are coming? From a death world? To fight the Drekari? It appears so. Why would they do this? We have never contacted them. We have nothing to offer them." Sorrel had no answer. He had studied human transmissions for years, trying to understand their strange species. They fought each other constantly, yet they also built hospitals and schools. They killed billions of their own kind, yet they also crossed oceans to save strangers from natural disasters. They were walking contradictions, violent and gentle, cruel and kind. Perhaps that was why they were coming. Perhaps they simply could not ignore a cry for help. Or perhaps they were coming because they wanted to hunt something that could fight back. Either way, the Coalition had invited Death World predators into their space. Sorrel was not sure if he had saved his people or doomed them. Across the void, in a Dreckery command ship the size of a small moon. High Hunter Scrath received word of the human response that he had never heard of Earth. He had never faced humans, but his lieutenants showed him the scans of the human homeworld, and something stirred in his ancient hunter's heart. A planet that brutal. A species that survived that brutal. For the first time in 100 years, Scrath felt his hunting instincts sharpen with genuine anticipation. "Change course," he ordered. "I want to see these death-world mammals for myself." The hunt was about to become very interesting. 17 species had docked at Brenner Station in the past century. All of them announced their arrival with formal transmissions. All of them requested permission. All of them followed proper diplomatic channels. The humans did none of these things. 3 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, so close to the station that proximity alarms screamed across every deck. They were small vessels by galactic standards, barely cruiser class. But something about them made Sorrel's antennae twitch with primal unease. They were covered in scars, blast marks, welded patches where hull breaches had been repaired with whatever metal was available. These were not parade ships. These were warships that had seen battle and survived. That a transmission came through, audio only. Brenner Station, this is Commander Dura Okonkwo of the UEDC Relentless, requesting docking clearance for personnel transfer. We brought 4,000 soldiers and a lot of ammunition. Point us at the enemy. Sorrel had prepared a formal greeting. 12 paragraphs of diplomatic protocol. He forgot all of it. Docking Bay 7, he managed. We will meet you there." He gathered 7 coalition representatives and walked to the bay on legs that felt like water. None of them knew what to expect. None of them were ready for what they saw. The humans walked off their ships in perfect formation. They wore armor that looked primitive compared to coalition technology, yet somehow more threatening. They carried weapons openly. They moved with the easy grace of creatures who had never been prey in their entire evolutionary history. At their head walked a woman with dark skin and close-cropped hair. Commander Okonkwo. She was smaller than Sorrel had expected, shorter than most of her own soldiers. But she moved like she owned every room she entered, and her eyes scanned the docking bay with the cold assessment of a predator sizing up territory. "Ambassador Sorrel?" she asked. Her voice was calm, friendly even, but there was something underneath it, something sharp. "Yes. Welcome to Brenner Station. We are grateful for your response to our distress signal." Okonkwo nodded. "Show us what we're dealing with." The coalition representatives led the humans to a briefing room. They showed them footage of Dreckery attacks, the hunting packs, the slaughter, the way the Dreckery played with their victims before killing them. Most species who watched this footage wept. Some vomited. A Keseth ambassador had suffered a cardiac episode during a previous viewing. The humans watched in silence. Some took notes. One soldier in the back yawned. When the footage ended, Okonkwo turned to her officers. "Standard pack tactics. They rely on fear to break enemy lines before contact. Flanking maneuvers are predictable. They don't use cover because nothing has ever shot back effectively." "Ma'am," said a young lieutenant, "they remind me of wolves." "Bigger wolves," Okonkwo agreed, "but wolves nonetheless. We've hunted wolves for 50,000 years." She turned to Sorrel. "We can work with this. What forces do you have available?" "We have mining ships, some security vessels, nothing designed for combat. Civilians, 10 million refugees across 12 stations, 40 million more on worlds in the Dreckery's path." Okonkwo's jaw tightened. Something flickered in her eyes. "Children, many, yes." The commander was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Harder, colder. "Show me your refugee centers. I want to see the defensive positions." As they walked, Sorrel noticed something strange. The humans stopped to look at coalition civilians. Not with hunger, as he had feared. Not with disdain. They looked at the frightened refugees the way Sorrel might look at lost children. One human soldier, a woman with red hair and a scar across her jaw, knelt beside a venery child who had been crying. She did not speak the child's language. She simply held out a small wrapped object from her pocket. Food of some kind. The child took it hesitantly, and the soldier smiled before moving on. "Your people," Sorrel said quietly to Okonkwo. They are not what I expected. What did you expect? Hunters. Predators. Your world is classified as one of the most dangerous in the known galaxy. Okonkwo smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We are predators, Ambassador. The most successful predators Earth ever produced. But we're something else too. Something the Drekari will never understand. What is that? We protect things. It is in our blood. Our ancestors formed bonds with wolves and made them into loyal companions. We domesticated creatures that could kill us and made them family. We crossed oceans to save strangers from floods and earthquakes. She looked at the refugees, at the children. The Drekari hunt because they enjoy it. We fight because something needs protecting. That makes us more dangerous than they can possibly imagine. Somewhere in the void, High Hunter Scrath's fleet changed course toward Brenner Station. He had reviewed the human transmissions. He had seen their small ships, their primitive weapons, their fragile bodies. He was eager to begin the hunt. He did not yet understand that the hunt had already changed. The prey had teeth now. The prey had claws. And the prey would not run. Sealam 4 was a farming world. Green fields stretched from horizon to horizon. Rivers cut silver paths through valleys filled with grain. 3 million refugees had fled here because it was peaceful, because it was safe, because the war seemed so far away. The Drekari found it in 6 days. They did not send an army. They sent hunting parties. 12 packs of 20 hunters each, dropping from the sky in pods that screamed like dying animals. This was not conquest to them. This was sport. This was entertainment. The first pack landed near a refugee settlement called Haven's Rest. 2,000 civilians, mostly Veneri and Pelori. Families who had already lost everything once and had no strength left to run again. The Drekari surrounded the settlement at dawn. They did not attack immediately. That was not their way. They let the fear build. They howled and screamed in the darkness. They let the refugees hear them coming. By the time the first Drekari warrior walked into the settlement, half the civilians were already paralyzed with terror. The warrior was 8 feet tall, for arms ending in claws like curved swords, a face that was all teeth and hunger. It looked at the cowering refugees the way a cat looks at cornered mice. Then it smiled. Run, it said in broken coalition common. More fun when you run. A shot rang out across the settlement. The Drekari warrior stumbled, looked down at the hole in its chest armor, looked up with something that might have been surprise. Private Rosa Medina stood 40 meters away, rifle raised, eyes steady. Behind her stood 15 human soldiers and 60 coalition volunteers armed with whatever weapons they could find. You want to hunt? Medina called out. Hunt us instead. The Drekari warrior roared and charged. Medina put 3 more rounds into its chest before it covered half the distance. It fell 10 meters from her position, twitching, dying, confused. In 300 years, the Drekari had never lost a hunter in the opening moments of a raid. They had never faced prey that shot back before they could close the distance. They had never faced prey that did not run. The rest of the pack emerged from the tree line, and the battle began. Across Sealam 4, similar scenes played out. Human soldiers and coalition volunteers held defensive positions while evacuation shuttles loaded civilians. The tactics were simple but effective. Overlapping fields of fire, layered fallback positions. Never let the enemy close to melee range where their claws gave them advantage. The Drekari tried their usual fear tactics. They screamed. They displayed the bodies of their kills. They charged in waves designed to break enemy morale before the fighting even started. None of it worked. The humans did not break. They did not flee. They held their positions with a calm determination that the Drekari had never encountered. Some of them were clearly afraid, but they fought anyway. They had learned, somewhere in their violent history, that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was fighting despite Haven's Rest. The situation grew desperate. More Drekari packs converged on the settlement. The evacuation shuttles were still loading. Someone needed to hold the main road. Medina volunteered. She found a narrow point between 2 buildings where the Drekari could only approach 3 at a time. She dug in. She checked her ammunition. She waited. The first wave came screaming down the road. Medina opened fire. One Dreckery fell, then another. The third reached her position and swung its claws. She dodged, took a gash across her arm, and shot it in the face at point-blank range. More came, and more. Medina tiendet magazines. Took another round. Kept firing point 11 minutes. That was how long she held that choke point alone. 11 minutes against creatures that had conquered 400 star systems. When reinforcements finally reached her, she was standing on a pile of Dreckery bodies, bleeding from 6 different wounds, still firing. The evacuation shuttles launched. 2,000 civilians escaped. Haven's Rest burned behind them. But the people survived. Across the planet, the Dreckery packs began to retreat. Not because they were defeated. Not because they had taken unacceptable losses. They retreated because they were confused. This had never happened before. Prey was not supposed to fight back. Prey was not supposed to win. High Hunter Scrath received the battle reports on his command ship. He watched footage of Medina's stand. He watched her take wounds that should have killed her and keep fighting. He watched her face, looking for fear, and found nothing but cold determination. Something stirred in his ancient heart. Not fear, not yet, but respect. These humans were worthy prey. Perhaps the worthiest prey the Dreckery had ever found. He ordered his full fleet to seal him for. If these Deathworld mammals wanted a war, he would give them one on the ground. Commander Okonkwo visited Medina in the field hospital. The soldier was covered in bandages, hooked to machines that pumped blood and medicine into her torn body. Any other species would have died from her wounds. Humans simply refused to stop. You did good, Private, Okonkwo said. Medina smiled weakly. They're not so tough, Commander. Just big and slow and really surprised when you shoot them. Okonkwo laughed. Then her face grew serious. The main fleet is coming. 50,000 hunters. This was just the beginning. Then I better heal fast, Medina said. Those refugees are counting on us. Outside the hospital, human soldiers prepared defensive positions. They cleaned weapons. They checked ammunition. They told jokes and laughed because that was how humans dealt with fear. The storm was coming, but they would be ready. Pell was 7 years old by Venery counting. He had watched his home burn. He had lost his parents in the evacuation. He had spent 3 weeks in a refugee camp, surrounded by strangers, crying himself to sleep every night. Then Sergeant Yuki Tanaka found him hiding behind a supply crate. She did not speak his language. He did not speak hers, but she sat down beside him and pulled something from her pocket. A flat board with squares on it, small round pieces in 2 colors. She set it up between them and made a motion with her hand. A game. Pell did not understand the rules at first, but Tanaka was patient. She showed him how the pieces moved, how to capture, how to plan ahead. They played for hours while the refugee camp bustled around them. When Pell finally won his first game, Tanaka smiled and said a word he did not recognize. Good. He learned to say back. Then other words. Hello. Food. Safe. Friend. The other refugees watched these interactions with confusion. The humans were predators. Deathworld monsters. Why were they teaching children games? Why were they sharing their food? Why did they stand guard outside the sleeping areas at night, protecting creatures they had no reason to care about? Tanaka's squad adopted the refugee camp. They reinforced the shelters. They improved the water filtration. They organized supplies and made sure everyone had enough to eat. When a Pelori elder fell ill, a human medic spent 6 hours learning Pelori biology well enough to treat her. I do not understand your species, Ambassador Sorrel said to Tanaka one evening. You are predators. Your world is filled with violence. Yet you treat these refugees like family. Tanaka thought about this for a moment. Do you know what a dog is? I have read about them. Domesticated wolves. 50,000 years ago, our ancestors looked at wolves and saw something useful. Dangerous, yes. Deadly, absolutely. But our ancestors did not kill them all. They fed the ones who came close. They shared their fires. Over generations, wolves became dogs. Our protectors, our companions, our family. She looked at the refugees. We have always done this. Found dangerous things and made them friends. It is in our nature. But why? Because we are social predators. We hunt in groups. We form bonds. And once something is part of our group, we will die to protect it. She smiled. These refugees are part of our group now. The Dreckery will learn what that means. 50,000 kilometers above, High Hunter Scrath studied human history in his personal chambers. He had accessed captured databases from Coalition worlds. He had found records of human transmissions, news broadcasts, historical archives. The more he learned, the more uneasy he became. The humans had fought each other constantly. Wars that killed millions. Weapons that could burn entire cities to ash. They had come close to destroying their own species multiple times. But they had also rebuilt. They had also healed. Every time they knocked themselves down, they got back up stronger. Scrath watched footage of something called World War II. He watched humans charge into certain death to protect their allies. He watched them endure horrors that would have broken any Dreckery and keep fighting. He watched them liberate camps filled with their own kind who had been tortured and starved, and he saw something in their eyes that troubled him. Rage. Cold, burning, patient rage. The Dreckery hunted for pleasure. They killed because it was fun. If hunting stopped being enjoyable, they would simply find new prey. Humans were different. Humans fought to protect. And when something they protected was threatened, they did not stop. They could not stop. Their entire evolutionary history had built them to defend their pack at any cost. Scrath had hunted thousands of species across hundreds of years. He had never faced an enemy who would fight harder the more you threatened what they loved, that he shared his findings with his lieutenants. They listened in silence. They are more dangerous than we thought, Scrath said. They will not break. They will not flee. The more we threaten their refugees, the harder they will fight. Then we overwhelm them, said Pack Leader Vorik. Numbers will prevail. Perhaps. But I want you to understand what we face. These are not prey animals who fight back. These are predators who have chosen to protect prey. That makes them unpredictable. That makes them dangerous. Are you suggesting we retreat? High Hunter. Scrath bared his teeth. Never. I am suggesting we respect our enemy. The hunt is only glorious when the prey is worthy. These humans are worthy. He stood and looked out at the stars. Tomorrow we commit our full force. 50,000 hunters. We will test these deathworld mammals and see if they truly deserve their reputation. On the surface of Selim 4, Tanaka finished another game of checkers with Pell. The boy had learned fast. He was starting to beat her regularly now. You're getting good, she said in simple coalition comment. Pell smiled. It was the first real smile he had shown since losing his parents. Good, he repeated. Then, carefully, in broken human speech, thank you. Friend. Tanaka felt something tighten in her chest. She had joined the military to fight, to protect Earth from threats. She had never expected to find family on a distant world, in a child who was not even her species. But here she was. And tomorrow, 50,000 Dreckery would try to kill this child. She looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, the enemy fleet was gathering. Let them come, she thought. Let them try. The sky turned black with drop pods. 50,000 Dreckery hunters fell upon Selim for like a plague of armored locusts. They landed in waves, spreading across the planet's surface in hunting formations perfected over 3 centuries of conquest. This was not sport anymore. This was annihilation. Commander Okonkwo watched the invasion from her command post in the mountains. 4,000 humans. Then tous en coalition volontaire. Against 50,000 apex predators. The math was impossible. But mathematics had never stopped humans before. All units, she said into her communicator. Remember your training. Remember who you're protecting. Make them pay for every meter they take. The battle began at dawn and did not stop. The Dreckery attacked with overwhelming force. They crashed into human defensive lines like waves against rocks. The first wave died. The second wave died. The third wave pushed through, and humans fell back to secondary positions. It was brutal. It was bloody. It was exactly what Okonkwo had planned. The humans did not try to hold everywhere. They held choke points, narrow valleys, urban streets. Anywhere the Dreckery numbers meant nothing and their size became a disadvantage. They turned every building into a fortress, every hill into a killing ground, every retreat into a trap. The Drekari were hunters, but they had never been hunted. They did not understand falling back to lure the enemy forward. They did not recognize feigned weakness. When human units pretended to break and run, the Drekari chased them with howling glee, straight into ambushes that cut their packs to pieces to be why midday. The Drekari had taken half the planet. They had also lost 8,000 hunters. High Hunter Scrath landed with his personal guard to take command of the assault. He had watched the battle from orbit and seen something that disturbed him. The humans were losing ground, but they were not losing hope. Every position they abandoned was burned behind them. Every retreat was orderly. Every counterattack was perfectly timed. These mammals were not running. They were fighting a war of attrition, trading space for blood. The final defensive line was a mountain range called the Spine. Behind it lay the last evacuation zone. 30,000 refugees waiting for transport ships that were still hours away. Tanaka's unit held the Eastern Pass. 200 soldiers, one narrow road, and 10,000 Drekari heading straight for them. "This is it," Tanaka told her squad. "We hold until the ships arrive. No matter what." The Drekari came at noon. They filled the pass like a river of claws and teeth. The humans opened fire. The first hour was carnage. Drekari bodies piled in the narrow pass until the living had to climb over the dead. Human soldiers fell too, but they fell slowly. They fell hard. And even dying, some of them kept shooting. Tanaka took a claw across her ribs in the second hour. She bandaged it herself and kept fighting. One of her soldiers lost an arm and continued firing with his remaining hand until blood loss finally took him. The Drekari had never seen anything like this. They were predators. They understood killing, but they did not understand dying for something. They did not understand why these fragile mammals refused to break the command post. Okonkwo received word that the Eastern Pass was failing. Tanaka's unit was down to 60 soldiers. The Drekari had committed their reserves. She made a decision. "Pull everyone back to the evacuation zone," she ordered. "Except me. I'm going to the pass." Her officers protested. She ignored them. She took a rifle, a pistol, and walked into the battle alone. Scrath found her at the mouth of the pass. He had come to see the human commander himself, to test this Deathworld predator who had caused him so much trouble. He towered over her, 3 feet taller, 4 times heavier, armed with claws that could cut through starship armor. Okonkwo looked up at him without fear. "You must be the big one they keep talking about. I'm High Hunter Scrath. I have killed 10,000 prey across 100 worlds. You are Commander Okonkwo. You have impressed me. Glad to hear it." Scrath spread his arms. "Face me, blade to blade, predator to predator. Die with honor." Okonkwo raised her rifle and shot him in the knee. Scrath roared and collapsed. He had expected a duel. He had expected ritual combat. He had expected honor. Okonkwo walked toward him, firing. 3 rounds into his chest, 2 into his shoulder. She stood over him and pressed the rifle barrel against his skull. "We don't duel," she said. "We win." She did not fire. Instead, she called for restraints. The Drekari fleet watched their High Hunter fall. They watched him dragged away in chains by creatures half his size. They had never seen a High Hunter captured. They had never imagined it was possible. Confusion spread through their ranks. Then fear. Then panic. Human reinforcements arrived through the jump point at that exact moment. Fresh ships. Fresh soldiers. An enemy that had somehow gotten stronger while the Drekari got weaker. The Drekari broke. For the first time in 300 years, they fled. Not in tactical retreat. Not in regrouping. They ran like prey because something had finally made them afraid. The evacuation ships launched behind the mountains. 30,000 refugees escaped to safety. Pell was on one of those ships, clutching a checkers board Tanaka had given him, watching the planet shrink below. The battle for Selim 4 was over. The war had just begun. 3 months after Selim 4, the war ended. Not with a single great battle. Not with a dramatic surrender. The Drekari simply stopped hunting. They retreated to their home systems and closed their borders. For the first time in 300 years, They had found something in the galaxy that frightened them. The Meridian Coalition was safe. 12 species that had faced extinction were now free to rebuild. The refugee camps became permanent settlements. The burned worlds began to heal, but the galaxy had changed. Everyone had seen what happened. Everyone had watched a small force of Deathworld mammals defeat the greatest predators in known space. Ambassador Sorrel stood before the Coalition Council on Brenner Station. The same chamber where he had begged for help months ago. Now it was filled with whispers and worried glances. "We must discuss the humans," said Council Leader Maven. Her Pelori voice was heavy with concern. "They saved us. We are grateful, but we have all seen what they can do. Their violence, their persistence, their refusal to stop. They came when we called," Sorrel said. "Yes, and now they are here, in our space, with their weapons and their warships and their terrifying capacity for destruction. What happens when they decide we are the enemy?" Sorrel had thought about this question every night since the war began. He had watched humans fight. He had watched them die. He had watched them hold the line against impossible odds for refugees they had no reason to protect. "They will not turn on us," he said finally, "because we are their pack now. Their pack. Humans form bonds. They cannot help it. It is written in their genes. Once something is under their protection, they will never abandon it, never betray it, never stop fighting for it." He looked at the council. "We asked for their help. They gave it freely. They bled for our children. They died for our people. In their eyes, we are family now, and humans do not harm family." The council was silent. They wanted to believe him. They were afraid to believe him. On Earth, Commander Okonkwo stood before the United Nations Assembly. Her uniform was crisp. Her medals gleamed, but the soldiers who knew her could see the weight on her shoulders. The war had cost her. It had cost all of them. "We have announced ourselves to the galaxy," she said. "Every species with a telescope saw what we did. Some will be grateful. Some will be terrified. Some will test us, probe our weaknesses, try to determine if we are friends or threats." She paused, looked out at the assembled representatives of Earth. "We must decide what we want to be. Conquerors, like the Dreckery, isolationists, hiding on our death world and hoping the universe leaves us alone, or something else." She straightened. "I have fought the worst the galaxy has to offer. I have seen what happens when species prey on each other. I refuse to let humanity become another predator hunting the weak." "What do you propose?" asked a delegate. "Guardians. We become guardians. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We answer distress calls. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. We make the galaxy a safer place, not through conquest, but through compassion." It was a bold vision, an idealistic vision. Some said it was naive, but the assembly voted yes. On Brenner Station, Sergeant Tanaka found Pell in the recreation area. He was teaching other refugee children to play checkers. Some of them were Venery like him. Others were Pelori, Kesith, species Tanaka had never seen before. They huddled around the game board with intense concentration. "You came back," Pell said when he saw her. His human speech had improved dramatically. "I waited. I promised I would." Pell ran to her and hugged her legs. Venery did not typically show affection this way, but he had learned it from watching humans. Tanaka knelt down and hugged him back. "Are you staying?" he asked. "For a while. The Coalition has asked us to help rebuild, train defensive forces, set up early warning systems." She smiled. "Someone has to teach you all how to fight back. Will the bad ones return? Maybe someday. But if they do, we will be ready." In a cell deep within Brenner Station, High Hunter Scrath sat in chains. His wounds had healed. His pride had not a doctor. Amara Diallo visited him regularly. She was a psychologist assigned to study Dreckery behavior. Scrath had expected torture. He had expected execution. Instead, the humans asked him questions and listened to his answers. "Why do the Dreckery hunt?" Diallo asked during one session. "Because it is our purpose. We are hunters. We have always been hunters. What else would we do? Build? Create? Protect?" Scrath laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Protect what? We have nothing worth protecting. Our worlds are empty. Our culture is conquest. We hunt because without the hunt, We are nothing. Diallo was quiet for a moment. That is very sad. Sad. Scrath had never considered it that way. You have no families? No ones? No one you would die for? No. Then you're already dead, Diallo said. You just have not stopped moving yet. Scrath thought about this for a long time after she left. The final image was this: Brenner Station at night cycle. Lights dimmed, stars visible through the observation windows. Tanaka sat with Pell and a dozen other children, human and alien alike. They played games. They shared food. They laughed at jokes that did not translate properly. Outside, human patrol ships moved through the darkness. They guarded shipping lanes that had once been hunting grounds. They answered distress calls from worlds they had never heard of. They stood watch over a galaxy that had spent centuries being prey. The Drekari had taught the galaxy to fear predators. Humans taught the galaxy something different. They taught the galaxy what happened when predators chose to protect instead of hunt. They taught the galaxy that the strongest creatures were not those who killed without mercy, but those who loved without limit. The galaxy had learned to fear the humans of Earth. In time, they would learn to love them instead.